This is the Blood Red Podcast from the Liverpool Echo.
It's the Blood Red Podcast, courtesy of the Liverpool Echo. I'm Guy Clarke. Welcome along. A deadline day dash for Michael Edwards and Jurgen Klopp, Preston North End's Ben Davies, and a Turkish delight in the form of Schalke's Ozan Kabak, seen as the pair to solve Liverpool's defensive SOS. We'll get into the latest deadline day dealings. We'll look back on Sunday's win over West Ham and preview Wednesday night's visit of Brighton. To do all of that, we have our Liverpool correspondent, chief Liverpool writer Ian Doyle, and Joe Rimmer as well.
Is our Liverpool correspondent not got a name?
No, that's just your title now, though. Liverpool correspondent.
I thought I said his name. Paul Gorst. Of course it's Paul Gorst.
No, you do.
Oh, dear. Amateur hour on the Red Podcast. Anyway, let's crack on. We've got plenty to talk about on deadline day. And Gorsty, as we spoke earlier on, it's an exciting one. Liverpool doing a old-fashioned double deal.
Yeah, the old Chris Kirkland Jersey Dudek. The old move for that one when Gerard Dudek brought them two in. And as I was saying before, Guy, when we did the agenda earlier today, I mean, Liverpool normally sensible and quite prudent, aren't they? They've normally got their feet up at Melwood as it was, and telling Vinny O'Connor outside to not bother because nothing's happening, and it's going to be a quiet day at Melwood. But for a little bit of a change, Liverpool have mixed it up and they're leaving it till late in deadline day to bring in not one but two, we believe. And while fans would normally be looking at it and thinking, I'm happy that Liverpool aren't bothering with any of this, and you can just kind of watch the madness unfold knowing that it doesn't affect Liverpool. I think there's always a little part of them that thinks, I'm a little bit gutted that we're missing out on this one. So I think supporters have been glued to Twitter and our blog and Sky Sports News and whatever else today just to find out anything and everything that's happening. And it's exciting, isn't it? It's a little bit different. We're not used to it as reporters. We're normally, as we say, just scrabbling around for the latest young kid going out on loan or, whoever it may be. But looks like we've got two arrivals coming at some point today.
Yeah, Doyle, it sort of seems to be something to do with the calendar year ending in one. I sort of go back to 2011 when Suarez and Carroll arrived. Obviously, Fernando Torres left. There were helicopters. They're not involved this time, but it does sort of have that level of excitement.
Well, I'm not excited. I'll be honest.
Surprised at that one.
Well, let's just say that I was working when all that was happening in 2011. And as I've said before, I've covered Everton, and they every single year would do something ridiculous on deadline day. So deadline day was always a nightmare. So no, I prefer it when no one signs. It's great. Anyway, it's interesting in the sense that it's obvious that Liverpool didn't want to do anything, and they were not going to do anything. But clearly, if you add in what's happened with Joel Matip, which, while we haven't had any word from Liverpool, we have to assume it can't be a very good injury if it's ankle ligaments, and they're looking to, as we understand, to bring in a player, Kabak, on loan, which I'm sure Ghosty will come into a little bit more detail. He knows a bit more about it than the rest of us. So that's an interesting move, because it kind of like, while people will go, oh, look at Liverpool now spending all this money, they've actually spent next to nothing again. If you look at the transfer window just gone as well, they did a very creative deal for Diogo Jota. So it's not just Liverpool. We've mentioned this several times on the podcast that teams aren't spending loads of money and Liverpool aren't going to. But it's been fairly obvious for a while now that they needed a centre-back. And now the fact that they're going to get two is what's the interesting thing. I mean, I'm showing my age now, where I can remember when Liverpool signed Phil Bav and John Scales more or less on the same day. And they both ended up having fairly lengthy-ish Liverpool careers, Bav more so than Scales. I don't think anybody would have expected that at the time, but that's these things pan out. And we've seen in the past, in more recent years, that Liverpool quite like a defender in the January. They got Martin Skirtle, Daniel Agger, Pellegrino a little bit before him, and what's the other guy's name? Dutch guy, tall one, injured. Him as well. Yeah, him as well.
yeah, Kroenkamp. Sure it was him. Joe, though, two defenders and not one, shows that, as Doyle was sort of suggesting, maybe something to do with the injury with Joel Matip as much as anything, but it shows that Liverpool really don't want this crisis to obviously be lingering on into the second half of the season, and have decided finally on deadline day, after a month of deliberating over it, that they do need two and not just one.
Yeah, definitely. I think, as Dory's just said, it might speak volumes about where Matip's at with his injury at the moment. But yeah, two seem to be very creative deals. I mean, I think there is a lot of creativity going on in the market at the moment because there's not a lot of money going around. But to get Kabak on loan with an option and not an obligation, as Gorsty, I'm sure, will run us through in a bit, to buy, I think it's a bit of a no-brainer, isn't it? He's a player who's been linked a lot. I think Liverpool distanced themselves from him last summer, but obviously think he's worth the punt. And if he's not very good, well, it won't be a bad thing in the summer that they can send him back. And then Davies is again another no-brainer because such a small fee and really riskless transfer, isn't it? So, and then you had Nat Phillips, who I'm sure we'll come to in a bit, played very well at the weekend, so that was as well. So, yeah, Liverpool looking a lot healthier. They needed to get stuff done, and I'm not convinced they were going to do anything. I'm pretty sure they would like to have had this day as quite a quiet day. Should had Matip and Fabinho been fit, but I think just the extent of injuries has forced their hand, and they've come through with two quite creative and risk-free moves. So a pretty pleasing end to the day. Should both of those deals be confirmed in the coming hours?
Yeah, Gorsty, let's run through the deals then. Ben Davies and Ozan Kabak, the two who look like they're coming in. Kaletikar's name was thrown around. Also, Carmo, as we've got a comment on screen from Braga, has also been mentioned sort of over the last couple of hours as well. But the deals Liverpool are working on, how have they sort of structured these deals? How are they going to work? And how long are we expecting until these deals maybe get over the line?
Yeah, well, we've had loads of comments coming in there as we've been chatting with some asking, are these deals done? I mean, at the time of recording, it's R4, isn't it? And neither are done at the moment. We certainly expect Ben Davies to be completed without a hitch. His medical was this morning. I think Liverpool made initial talks with Preston on Thursday with Michael Edwards. And talks have accelerated over the weekend. And then obviously we had the news yesterday that an agreement had been reached. Liverpool are going to pay £500,000 initially, and it's going to rise to 1.6 based on appearance-based milestones and actually even an England cap, if you believe that, which probably shows you that Liverpool are quite confident and Preston are quite confident in this defender's ability. 25 years old, left-footed, a good passer by all accounts. I haven't seen too much of him, but we were talking earlier today, Guy, weren't we? And that's something that you kind of concurred with, someone who can play a little bit higher up the pitch, so enables Liverpool to defend in the same way they do as when Gomez and Van Dijk are on the pitch. So someone who's going to come in, not much experience at the top level, but he's 25 and he's played close to 300 games, I think, for Preston. He made his debut at 17. He's been at the club since he was 11. So someone who's going to make the biggest move probably of his career, and we'll see how he goes. On the Kabak front, it's a bit of a race against time, isn't it? The Bundesliga transfer deadline closes at 5 p.m. Schalke have made it clear that they need a replacement before they can agree to any kind of loan deal, but it does look as though Mustafi from Arsenal is going to be heading to Schalke, and Kabak has undertaken his medical in Gelsenkirchen today ahead of a potential move. So it's all looking positive on the Liverpool front. 2.5 million, we believe, is the loan agreement, but Liverpool are kind of keeping the cards close to the chest with regards to names. You throw names at them all day, and sometimes you say yes, no, and maybe, but they're refusing to be drawn on names purely because I'd imagine of how many they've been looking at over the last few hours. I mean, I think it's no secret that they've been in the market for a defender and they haven't really got much time. So how kind of much of a mad dash that is behind the scenes, only they will know. But I suppose that is why they've been keen to neither confirm or deny names. So we've seen a few thrown out, Kaleticar, as you say, Carmo of Braga, but it does appear to be that it is Ozan Kabak who's winning that race at the moment.
Yeah, as you said before, in terms of Ben Davies, having seen a bit of him play, well, more than a bit of him playing for Preston North End, left-footed centre-half. Of course, it's a homegrown option coming in for Liverpool as well, quick across the ground, decent passer as well. But Doyle, in terms of all of this, how do you look at it? Is it a bit of panic from Liverpool, or does it go down as master stroke in terms of how they've structured these deals? The loan, no obligation, but an option to buy on Kabak. And obviously with Ben Davies into the last 6 months of his deal at Preston North End, little sort of wiggle room for them, I suppose, in terms of negotiating a big fee.
Well, first things first, if I've seen either of these two players play, I can't remember it. So I bow to your superior knowledge, certainly on Ben Davies. and just about everybody on Twitter to the other lad from Schalke, who's never keep forgetting. That's how much I know about him. But actually, it's interesting because if the signing of Davies was just going to be by itself, then there was a bit of a question mark over it. It's like, why would they be bringing him in? What? Because then you've already got Nat Phillips and you've got Reece Williams, and I know Reece Williams had a bit of a tough time lately, but he's played in every single Champions League game so far this season. We saw Nat Phillips against West Ham. He's not let anybody down when he's come in and played. So it's strange in that, but Liverpool just needed numbers. I think that was the feeling behind the Davies. That's what I would say with the feeling behind the Davies move, simply because they do need somebody who's an actual, as you say, 300 games, might not be at the top level, but he's still an experienced centre-back. He'll have played against all different types of players. And as somebody who will be absolutely, if he gets the chance, desperate to do well. Yeah, absolutely desperate to do well. And I think that's the case, the same with the other deal, because if it's only going to be a loan with an obligation, without an obligation to buy, just an option, he'll be absolutely desperate to be playing and play really well. So in that sense, Liverpool will be delighted that they've got two players with a point to prove who are genuine centre-backs and will offer an alternative to what they've got at the moment, which let's be brutally honest, isn't very much, because with no Fabinho was also injured, as we know. So technically speaking, they were playing with a midfielder at centre-back at West Ham, and then a player who's only played, I think that's on his fourth Premier League appearance, I think only his fifth Liverpool appearance overall. So, and that's a player who almost left in the last transfer deadline day back in October. So, in terms of is the panic? It depends what you call panic. I mean, it'll look like panic because they've had 31 days to sign somebody. Then he only started doing a bit of business on the 29th or 30th day. But the reality is, until Matip gets injured against Tottenham, they genuinely think, well, we don't actually need anybody else. But I think it's just interesting, isn't it? If Matip gets injured next week rather than last week, you'd think Liverpool would be in a massive problem. So, while we've berated Matip being injured all the time, perhaps this is the one injury where he's actually got injured at the right time for Liverpool.
Yeah, definitely. Just picking up on sort of the theme of how the deals have been done, Joe, with Kabak in particular, we have been anticipating something big maybe in the centre-back department in the summer. Understand sort of it's a £30 million or €30 million deal maybe that could be on the table. So that would be a big deal, but it's kind of a little audition both for he and for Liverpool. If he doesn't quite look ready for what Liverpool need, he is only 20, then they can not take that up and go big on maybe someone else.
You've just said it, Guy. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it makes total sense, doesn't it? And I think also financially, it buys Liverpool time to see where they're at come the summer. Because let's face it, it might still be a case where clubs still can't do big deals in the summer. It doesn't look like fans are going to be turning to stadiums anytime soon, and when they do, it'll be a small amount of them. So, this just buys Liverpool time, doesn't it? I think the Kabak deal looks like a bit of a masterstroke because you can't go wrong. If he's good, he's good. If he's not, then he'll go back to Schalke, and Liverpool don't really need to worry about it. As Doyle said, I haven't really seen much of him play at all, if anything. But a lot of people sharing stats and stuff like that suggest he's sort of aerially dominant player. And then you've got someone like Davies, who perhaps is better on the ground and a bit quicker. So it just, like Doyle said, just gives Liverpool options, and it means that they can then, for some games, move Fabinho into midfield if they want to, move Henderson back into midfield. Because I think the other thing that was telling on Liverpool was that they were having to move Henderson and Fabinho to centre half, and then we're short of options in midfield, and James Milner can't keep playing 2-3 games a week, can he? So it just gives them more bodies, it gives them more options, and I think if someone like Davies doesn't even play that many games, it's just a good option for Liverpool to have, and it eases the burden on those there already. So I think there's a slight amount of panic to it, because there has to be, because I don't think anyone expected Fabinho and Matip to get injured again. But I think Liverpool have dealt with it as well as they could under the circumstances. They weren't going to go out and buy a Picano or a Ben White in this market. So these two seem to make sense.
Is there maybe, Gorst, I know we're not Bundesliga football experts, but looking at the Bundesliga table, Schalke are nailed to the bottom of it. They've conceded 49 goals. I suppose Kabak, if one thing, he's been used to doing a fair bit of defending this season, but going to be a big change in terms of going from a side at bottom of the league like Schalke to coming into a side like Liverpool.
Yeah, just instant kind of expectations, isn't it? Where Liverpool, it's a disaster if they draw a game, never mind lose. I have seen Kabak. I watched them earlier this season. I think they actually drew 0-0 on a Friday night, and I can't remember who it was against, but I couldn't say I noticed enough of them to form any sort of opinion. And even if I was watching them, watching them as closely as I could, you can't really form an opinion after one game anyway. But he's a Turkish international. He's 20 years of age, and apart from Schalke having a bit of a disastrous season and they've got loads of financial problems, they're still a big club in Germany, aren't they? So let's hope that Jurgen Klopp said it, didn't he? He said the ideal scenario would be to bring someone in for the now and for them to be a long-term and a short-term solution. So I think Liverpool will give him every opportunity for him to kind of stake his claim and show that he is good enough. But crucially, they haven't got that obligation to buy if it does go through. And I think that is a key kind of sticking point of this deal. So it means that they're not kind of stuck to a deal that might cost them 25-30 million in the summer for a player who they don't feel is going to be the right fit. So almost a try before you buy scenario for Liverpool at a time when they're in desperate need of just about any centre-back. So I think all things considered, if this one does get off the line, then it will be a very good one for Liverpool.
Yeah, and I suppose with Davies as well, a left-footed defender, the heart of defence, not something Liverpool currently have within the squad. But Doyle, who would have thought that Shkodran Mustafi would hold the key to Liverpool's January transfer dealings? He moving to Schalke, that allowing this to happen?
You had to get the Arsenal link in somewhere, didn't you? You're just absolutely shameless, totally shameless. What's interesting to me is that when it obviously last Friday, is it only last Friday? Because it seems like forever ago. It was only Friday, so 3 days ago, when it obviously became clear that Liverpool were chasing a centre back. So the fans on social media were like, "Yes, right, we're going after a centre back." And then when the stories came out on Saturday, Sunday over who they were actually targeting, quite a few of them were like, "Yeah, not that one. Yeah, I don't want that one." It's like, well, you either get one or you're not. There's not that many that Liverpool can go for, as we've seen. Not many people are moving. And we're seeing a little bit more action now, actually, before the deadline itself. I know Joe mentioned panic, and I wasn't so sure on Liverpool. I think there are some clubs who are starting to panic a little bit. They feel as though they need to do something. And Liverpool have been, if the deals go through the way that it looks as though they might do, then it is very clever from them. Because as I said before, they haven't had much financial outlay, partly because two reasons. One, they probably, as Joe said, with no fans coming in, they can't really do that because they don't want to take that particular risk. And it is a no risk with these two players because, Ben Davies hasn't cost that much money, and Kabak is not going to, if they get him in, they won't actually be paying anything for him. Certainly not obliged to. I mean, that might change in the summer, but it is just, I think Liverpool have realised that they've got themselves into a decentish position in the league. They're still in the Champions League. So they want to be in a position where they can actually give it a bit of a go in the second half of the season. And by bringing in two centre-backs, then, let's be honest, they haven't got any excuse whatsoever if things don't go to plan.
But on counter-argument to that, Joe, is it not going to be frustrating if Liverpool now have a brilliant second half to the season because the defence is sorted out and fall, 5 points short of winning the title, and think, well, we delayed for a month. If we'd perhaps done the business earlier, could have maybe landed another Premier League title?
Yeah, I've got to be honest. I think I spoke on a pod or so a couple of weeks ago, and I do think the damage has been done in terms of, this is going to sound really negative, and I don't mean it to be, but it's just my gut feeling. But in terms of the title defence, I think the last month has just dealt a massive, massive blow, and City have got nice advantage now. They look good. And look, this season can change on anything. We've seen it, haven't we, all season? It's been very strange, and teams seem to just go off the boil immediately and come back. So, that could change. But I just thought, the last month or so took its toll, and it still frustrates me that Liverpool put themselves in this position. They went into the season with Matip, who doesn't have a good injury record, and they knew that going in, and I thought they took a risk, and it did backfire. And that as harsh as it sounds, I think it looks like it's going to cost them the title, because they shouldn't be in this position. I still think that Liverpool, when they have all their players fit, are by far the best team in this league. I really, really do believe that. But they've just been obliterated by injuries and not having any backup. And as I said before, it's not just the centre halves. It's having to move Fabinho, who, is world class in midfield, and you're having to move him to the back. Same with Henderson. I think they've missed his energy in midfield at times. And I think that all contributed to them not being able to score many goals across the late Christmas and early January period. So, yeah, I found it very frustrating, and I do think, I suspect that their hand's been forced today, and that's why they've got them moved, but been forced by the Matip and Fabinho injuries that they suffered this week, rather than what happened earlier in the season. So, yeah, I am slightly frustrated, I have to admit.
Yeah, fair enough. Talking of goals and everything, they were backflowing at the London Stadium. Doyle, you were there to watch on against West Ham United. That second goal in particular, and well, Mohamed Salah's work for the first one even, he was really back on song, wasn't he?
He was. I mean, let's be honest, he was decent decent at Old Trafford, wasn't he? Scored twice. He was good at Tottenham. Should have had one goal, because why that was disallowed, I don't exactly know. But yeah. I know why it was disallowed. But what I'm saying is that it should have been allowed, is what I'm saying. Anyway, that's done and dusted. Going back to West Ham, yeah, I mean, the second goal, I could have just written the entire match report on the second goal. It was just one of those goals where in the stadium, obviously we were lucky enough to be there and actually see it, is you could just see it all happening. I've seen the replays on the television, and it's not quite the same, but you could see, like, if he puts it there and then he puts it there. But when Shaqiri puts the ball over, everybody just thought, why have you done that? Why didn't you just run with it a little bit? Why have you hit it first time? And then Salah just obviously just controls it with one touch, with one foot, and then just knocks it in with the other one. So it was one of those goals where even some of the people in the press box were, I wouldn't say clapping, but they were like, oh, they were quite appreciative of it. Our former colleague James, I was going to say, our former colleague James Pearce was not there, right? So he would have probably been on the pitch by that point if he'd actually been there. And believe me, the pitch was about 500 miles away. It was in a different postal code. It was that far away. So, no, I mean, what interesting to me was that I was getting all this feedback on Twitter of people watching the game on television. They were saying that Gary Neville and Martin Tyler, from Sky Sports, were kind of suggesting that Thiago was slowing Liverpool down and ruining it for them, and they were just nowhere near as good as they should be, etc., etc. I mean, obviously I haven't heard it myself, and I take some of what people were saying with a pinch of salt, because you know what people can be like. They hear things that they don't mean, and then put brackets next to my name and then say that I've said it on a Q&A, but that's something else entirely. But Thiago started the last three games. Liverpool have gone to United, they've gone to Tottenham, they've gone to West Ham. 3 teams are in the top 6, and they've scored 8 goals. So if Thiago is making a difference to the way Liverpool play, it's to help them get back scoring again. I mean, and you can't say it's just down to the front 3, because Mane wasn't playing yesterday. Firmino came off the bench, and I think Mane was on the bench at the start of the game against United. So I think there's been more factors than just Thiago. But the game itself, Liverpool, we knew what to expect. West Ham put everybody behind the ball. They looked fairly solid, but the longer the game went on, you saw at the end of the first half, Liverpool starting to create a few chances. And then I think West Ham had one chance, didn't he? Headed off the line by Andy Robertson. And second half, Liverpool just went away with it. They thought they were very, very good. Built on the confidence from the Tottenham game, and built on the confidence that they would have got from United, where, as we've said in the past, I thought they were a bit unlucky to get beaten in the FA Cup game. I also seem to think, was my prediction 3-1 to Liverpool?
Yeah, I think it was actually.
Yeah, okay. So I just thought, and I also said, yeah. Anyway, go on. Yeah.
Yeah, unsurprising that you bring that one up, but
yeah.
Gorsty, is the blip officially over now?
Yeah, no question. I thought last week was a massive week for Liverpool. It was Jurgen Klopp didn't seem to agree, but it was put to him in his press conference before the Tottenham game. This is a season-defining week and a season-defining run, and he said no. He said, how can I think it like that? I just look at Tottenham, and you can see why he said that. But Liverpool needed 6 points, didn't he, just to stay on the coattails at Manchester City and get themselves a fighting chance for that massive, huge, enormous game at Anfield on Sunday. Of course, still work to do first with Brighton up on Wednesday, but if Liverpool perform as they have done in the last 2 games, they should get through that. But that hasn't been as straightforward as it normally would be in recent weeks, has it? So it's still a big game, but yeah, for me it was a huge week, and if Liverpool wouldn't have got maximum points from from those games, then they could kiss goodbye the title, no question. I mean, it's still got it all to do with City with the 4-point lead in the game in hand, but they need to win against Man City, I think. But yeah, it was a massive week, couple of massive results, and the blip is in the rearview mirror now, isn't it? 6 goals in 2 games, maximum points. Liverpool are backfiring, and so Salah. And I agree with Doyle about that second goal. It was just an incredible. There was 4 touches and it's in the back of the net. Just an incredible piece of counter-attacking play. And to be fair, there's been loads of that under Jurgen Klopp. I think Liverpool have become one of the best counter-attacking teams in Europe. And when they put together goals like that, you can see why you would make a statement like that. It was just from start to finish, it was brilliant.
Yeah, certainly after the game, Joe, Jurgen Klopp was asked what's the secret been to get Liverpool back scoring. He was remaining tight-lipped, didn't want to share what the secret is. You any idea what it was?
Just to carry on, I think they just they played their game. I think it was just getting that first goal, and I think as soon as they scored against Tottenham, you saw the confidence rise, and then they were very good in the second half. And I thought the West Ham game, even though the first half was a little bit bland in terms of the football, I thought Liverpool looked utterly dominant and a lot more sure of themselves than they had in the previous run. And then the goals were just phenomenal. All 3 were really good. And that second goal, I mean, I know both the guys have talked about it, but Salah's touch and finish, to bring that down and finish it so casually as he did, is just the mark of a truly world-class player. And he's a funny player, Salah, because you do hear a lot of talk about other players in the Premier League, and perhaps we're being a bit precious, but I always feel like he doesn't get the credit he deserves. I even see people, on Twitter hammering him for being lazy and this, that, and the other, and I just think, even after the game, Graham Souness was talking about him being greedy, and I think it's the Premier League's top scorer. What more does he need to do each week to convince people that he's totally world class? And he's been absolutely brilliant since he's come to Liverpool. He's scored over 20 goals for 3 seasons running, and we're only just in February, and he's already hit the 20 mark. So he's phenomenal, and it was a really, really great goal. But it was good to see that they turn the screw at the end. Firmino comes on, plays a role in, and so did Oxlade-Chamberlain. So I think it was a real confidence booster. I think Brighton will be tricky though, so I think they just need to stay, keep themselves grounded, make sure they get through this next Brighton game, and then I agree with Gorsey that City game is just massive. I think they just have to win that game, and if they do, then you just never know. But I think they have to beat Man City.
Can I just ask Joe how much the ransom is? Because it looks like it's been...
I'm slightly worried because I'm sitting in this room and I didn't turn the light on. I might turn the light on because it's getting darker and darker, and at the end it's just going to be. I might turn this little. I'm in my son's bedroom. He's 2, by the way, and he's got this little.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
I'm not alone. I'm surrounded by friends. Don't worry about me.
Are there any otters there?
No, I've got a woolly mammoth. Ricky Mouse is down there. Yeah, no, I'm fine, but I might go and turn the light on before I'm sitting in the dark. So we'll do that.
People come for transfer news. They see cuddly toys. Win-win here on the Blood Red podcast. But Doyley, in terms of other standout performers aside from Mohamed Salah and Joe Gorst, he tried to help you out with it's 4 seasons in a row now. He's hit 20 goals for the Reds. But in terms of other standout performers, we're talking about centre backs today, and lots of people praising again Nat Phillips.
As I said before, in the games that he's played, I don't think he's let anybody down. I mean, he knows when he had his man of the match performance against West Ham and his in the reverse fixture in October, Jurgen Klopp said afterwards he's a player who knows what he can do and what he can't do. He's not Messi, but then Klopp said neither was I, and I knew what I could do. And I think he's done all right when he's come in. And what was good for me is that he seems to have got the trust of his teammates as well. I think certainly from looking at the way they were quite happy to give him the ball in certain places against West Ham, which, fun enough, against Brighton in the away game, Brighton were they kind of just let him have the ball because they didn't think they could do anything with it in terms of playing out from the back. And I think he's got a little bit more confidence now because he's playing 1 or 2 decent passes against West Ham. So, if he's one of the options at centre back, you'd be more than happy with that. In terms of other performances, Gini Wijnaldum again. another great game, playing in that number 6 role. He's somebody who's always steps up for the team. We have to kind of assume that he's going to be going at the end of the season, given the fact there's been no movement on his contract. And whenever he gets asked, he always says, well, you need to speak to the club about that. And they've been a bit busy with other stuff. So, yeah, I think, well, obviously Henderson playing centre-back isn't the ideal place for him, especially with Fabinho being injured. With Wijnaldum playing in that role in centre midfield, I think it does allow the likes of Thiago be able to press forward a little bit more. Curtis Jones came on and he made an instant impact as well. I'm sure everybody saw the incident with Klopp and James Milner on the touchline. So we don't need to go through that again, but that was mildly amusing. But it did also show that, Jones is somebody who can offer something in midfield as well.
Yeah, certainly. Well, let's look ahead then. Brighton's come this week before Gorsty. Manchester City at Anfield. Said Jurgen Klopp's comments before Tottenham it was going to be a defining week. Seems as though this week really is.
Yeah, it's just as big a week as the one before, isn't it? I think I wrote something similar in the analysis of the game yesterday, and the big games just keep on coming. Even before the Tottenham game, I wrote something along the lines of Liverpool have got 4 of the top 6 to play coming up in the next few weeks, and then they've got Everton and they've got Leipzig in the Champions League. So really is a crucial period of the season. So what better than to sign 2 centre-backs in an area where you're desperately in need of it. So, it's been a good few days for Liverpool, really good few days. Even better if they manage to get these 2 over the line, which it does look as though will be the case now. And then they could go beat Brighton on Wednesday and then a massive game against City on Sunday. So, the big games, big days just keep coming.
Yeah, certainly. So, Joe, you're right there.
I don't think Dory's even noticed that comment. Can anyone? I mean, obviously you can't see this if you're listening, but a comment has just appeared at the bottom of the screen from Simon Evans that says you can always rely on Ian Doyle to remove the jam from your donut, and I think that sums you up.
Keeping it real, just keeping it real. That's all I do. I just, just keeping it real. I'm an old person now, so I've seen quite a lot. I've seen things.
Well, I must admit, me and the hammerhead shark find it very funny.
Can I see if I've got anything around? I haven't got anything. No.
Right, getting back.
Who's got the dog? Is that Ghost? Is that your dog, by the way? Yeah.
Yeah. Getting back on track, Joe.
Do we have to?
Well, yeah, we do. We got a little bit more on Brighton to talk about, and then our match selections. But in terms of Brighton, Liverpool still waiting for a win at Anfield since the win over Tottenham. Is this the ideal opportunity, the ideal warm up heading into the game with City at the weekend?
All the ones at Anfield recently have been the ideal game to get that monkey off their back, so to speak. But I think Brighton are a tough side. I think that they're very solid, aren't they? They don't really ever seem too spectacular, but they seem to manage games quite well. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they seem to always give the big teams a decent run for their money, even if they don't pick up results. So I think it's a slightly tough game, but I think if Liverpool can get that first goal, then once again, like we've seen against Tottenham and West Ham, they'll run away with it. But it's a tricky one. And they'll need to do some rotating, but then at least they'll have Firmino to come back in. I think that'd be massive, because I don't think Divock Origi did too much the other day to impress. And then hopefully Sadio Mane's fit. It was a small muscle injury, but small muscle injuries this season can drag on and on and on, as we've seen before. And with the amount of games that they have in short spaces of time, those muscle injuries can keep them out for 2 or 3 or 4, can't they? So fingers crossed he's back at it. And I suppose you mightn't even want to risk him, might you, with Man City on the horizon. So, but it's a tough one. Just to pick up something Doyle said before about Wijnaldum, again, he was brilliant yesterday. He was absolutely superb against Tottenham, and it's just gutting. It's gutting that he will go now, because I think barring a last minute negotiation from the 2 parties, it looks more and more each day like he'll go, and it's really disappointing, because I think Liverpool are losing one of their most reliable players for nothing, and look, it's going to be difficult, because you don't know what's gone on behind closed doors, but it does feel avoidable. He does feel like the type of player that would want to stay, but I'd love to find out one day why that deal couldn't be reached. But it'll be a real shame if he goes. It'd be really, really gutting, because he's just been a magnificent servant for Liverpool and a really great player. And I think he's going to be key between now and the end of the season as well.
And when that day comes, Paul Gorst will be your man to ask, and I'm sure he'll let you know all about it, Joe. But anyway, let's crack on and get into our team selection for the Brighton game. Alisson Becker in goal. Doyle, I'll let you go with the back four. Are you going to give 2 debuts out at the heart of defence?
No, I'm not going to give any. And there won't be any. I'm taking the jam out of everybody's donuts, and I'm taking the custard out as well. And anything you want in your donuts is going out. You're just going to get a really dry donut. I'll take the sugar off the top as well. If you just eat this dough, basically. That's what it is. Okay. Yeah. Anyway. Right. Yeah. Defence now. Same defence as the defence against West Ham.
Right. Okay. Gorst, are you agreeing with that? The dog isn't, I don't think.
Yeah.
No, the dog's been shouting Kabak at me all afternoon. Now, if Liverpool do manage to seal the deal for both Ben Davies and Ozan Kabak, then I'd be minded to start Kabak. Throw him in there alongside Phillips. Move Henderson into midfield. That'd be my centre-back partnership.
Joe, yourself?
Same again. I thought Henderson and Phillips were great. So, I don't see any reason to change it. You don't need to beat yourself, Gorsty. I'm really enjoying his contributions. It speaks more sense than you do.
That's the first time ever as well we've included somebody in a starting lineup who doesn't actually play for the club, that's quite good going.
Yeah, very true.
Messi as well.
No, he's past it now.
No, right. Doyle midfield?
Oh, well, it's going to have to be Wijnaldum and Thiago, isn't it? I'd probably put Jones in there instead of Milner.
Yeah, he did well coming off the bench. Obviously, you mentioned that moment with Milner coming off as well. Gorsty, what's your midfield?
I think Wijnaldum, Henderson, and I'd like to give Jones a start, actually. I just think Brighton are probably going to come and sit in deep, get men behind the ball and use that game plan that seemed to work to good effect over the last few weeks against Liverpool. So he just offers a little bit something different, doesn't he? He's not afraid to have a little dribble and pull defenders out of position. And I just think everyone else in the Liverpool team just tries to pick the passes too much. He's the one who seems to get the ball at his feet and have a bit of a run. So I'm going to give Thiago a little bit of a breather, and I'm going to pick Jones.
Joe?
I'm going to have to agree with Ian Doyle again. Wijnaldum, Thiago, and Curtis Jones. Yeah, I think Curtis Jones is great. I think he's been one of the highlights of the season, and Milner can't play a third game in a row. I wouldn't think. Mind you, if anyone can, James Milner can. He's like the bionic man, isn't he? He just keeps going. But yeah, Curtis Jones, I think, deserves a start. He's been very good in the cameos he's had recently from the bench, and I think he just could have the raw ability to help break a stubborn Brighton down. Break Brighton down. Quite difficult.
Yeah, and what about the forward line, Doyley?
Brighton breezy. Just thought I'd say that. I know Joe loves me saying it. I was also just thinking of the centre backs. Didn't Sacco and Ilori sign on the same day as well? Was that right?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that might be. That might be probably more comparative than any of the others, to be honest. So
I should tell Theo before he writes that piece.
I was going to say get Theo to write it. Yeah. What was the? Oh yeah, up front. Right. Now I don't think Sadio Mane is going to play. Okay. And I actually thought Origi did all right in the second half. I thought he started putting himself about, and I think he comes. Obviously it's hard for people coming in and just playing. I've not played for weeks, but he's kind of been it. He's had a few more chances of late, and I thought he looked okay. And it was interesting that it was him that got on the end of Thiago's one good pass in terms of key pass into the area where he nearly got on it just the end of the first half. So, having said that, I think he picked up an injury towards the end, so he's not playing. So with no Mane and no Origi, I'm going to put the lesser spotted Takumi Minamino on the left and put Firmino in the middle and Salah on the right.
Right, okay. I thought you were going to say you were going to put Jones in the forward line then, as opposed.
No, he's in the midfield.
Yeah, I know. I thought you were going to go back and reconfigure midfield, but
no reconfigure. No.
Gorsty, what about your forward line?
I'm not sure I agree with Doyle about Origi, to be honest. Every time I've seen him play, he hasn't. I mean, for pretty much all the season, he's just been a bit drifting in and out of games and hasn't really looked too interested. So I'd be bringing Firmino back. Salah obviously starts. but no Jota is a big thing, isn't it? And Minamino, don't really know what's happening with him at the moment. Having said that about Origi, I'd probably still go with Origi.
So I praise him, then drop him, and you slaughter him, and then play him.
That's my managerial now.
Okay, so not trying to just cram Shaqiri in somewhere maybe, and I don't know, you can't really play him off the left, though, can you? But
well, that's the problem. Is I didn't really think the diamond worked particularly well in the first half, so I always like the three up front. Probably, I'm more stick than carrot with me managerial tactics, so I'll have a go at you, but I'll still pick you. Origi.
And Joe, where do you fall on the Origi?
Yeah, I haven't been impressed with Origi, but he's not going to just force his way into my team just because there's no one else. But poor Takumi Minamino. I mean, he scores his first goal against Crystal Palace and then gets banished for the last 6 weeks. Basically, I'm going to give him a start, especially if Mane isn't available. And to be honest, even if Mane is touch and go, I think it's probably best to let him sit it out with City on the horizon. So. Yeah, I would play Minamino off the left as well, coming in on his right foot. That's how he got his first goal, isn't it? Against Palace. That's what position he played in that day. So, so hopefully he can do something, because I'm beginning to fear for Minamino. I used to worry a lot about Naby Keita. But now I'm worrying about...
Have you stopped worrying about Keita? Yeah.
There's no point worrying about Keita, is there? So, poor Takumi, I want to give him a chance.
And Joe, I'll stick with you. You can start us off on match predictions. What's the score going to be?
I think, in the same vein of the last couple of games, it's going to be tight for a little while, and then eventually Liverpool will get their goal. I'm going to say 2-0 Liverpool.
Gorsty?
1-0. I think it'll be a really tough one, actually. I think it'll just be a similar story to recent weeks.
And the prediction Oracle, who's got one right this season, but let us know about
what
it.
What about Liverpool United as well? 0-0. So two of the last my predictions. Anna said 2-2 for the cup game, and I wasn't far off there, was I?
You were wrong. Yeah. So
we don't worry about that.
What's the score going to be?
Don't stop taking the jam out of my donuts. Honestly, I agree with the lads. I like Brighton. I like Brighton a lot. I like the way they play. I was down there for the game in, I think it was November. Finished 1-1. I think Brighton had about 13 penalties in that game, scored one right at the end. I think, bear in mind, that game, Minamino was playing in centre mid, and I think Curtis Jones came on and played right back for a bit. So that was the absolute, and Nat Phillips was playing centre back, and that was the absolute, I think, nadir of the injury problems. That was the worst of the worst. So if Brighton couldn't beat Liverpool then, well, they are playing an awful lot better and have just beaten Tottenham, which I know Guy would have enjoyed very much. I think it'll be tight. I think Liverpool will win by 2 goals to 1 goal.
2-1. Okay, we'll have to wait and see how it plays out. Remember to stick across the Liverpool Echo for the latest on the deals to bring Ozan Kabak and Ben Davies to Anfield, as well as all the build-up to the game with Brighton and post-match reaction, which you'll also find here on the Blood Red channel, whether it be our dedicated YouTube channel or our podcast platforms. Thank you very much. Oh, yeah.
Just to cut you off before you close us off, during the recording, we've had it confirmed that Liverpool have agreed a $1 million loan fee for Ozan Kabak with an option to make it permanent in the summer for $18 million. £500,000 extra, which is centred around appearance-based bonuses and so on. So looks like Liverpool finally have their man, Ozan Kabak, on his way alongside Ben Davies.
Brilliant stuff indeed. 2 then on their way to Anfield. That's it from us here on this edition of the Blood Red podcast. Thanks for your time and your company. Bye for now.
This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo.